Hi. This morning, in The Observer, Hannah Summers printed yet another article, and it's entitled, Unqualified Experts Should Not Have Roles in Child Welfare Cases, Court Told. And it goes on to talk about a mother's appeal raises questions over how family courts in England and Wales deal with policy and regulation of psychological experts in alienation cases. I'm just going to go through this article and just give you my comments on it. But I want to start off, first of all, by quoting one of the main mission statements of the Anna Freud Centre. Your child's interest is paramount. Recognise that the child has the right to a full and loving relationship with both parents. Now that's Anna Freud, and if you could go into the United Nations Rights of the Child, and they have similar statements about the right to family life. We need to think very carefully about what Hannah Summers is trying to achieve in this article, because children need both parents when it is safe for them to have a good, healthy relationship with both parents. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of this article, I want to quote something right from the very end and then just let you think about what's happening here. At the end of the article it says the father had no contact with one of the children between January 2019 and November 2020, the court was told. That no contact, nothing. No phone calls, no Skype calls, no physical contact. His barrister, Charles Hale, King's Counsel, said that the children now have a full relationship with both parents and are thriving. They spend good quality time with their mother on a regular basis at weekends and at the school holidays, according to Davies' judgment. Surely, if they are thriving in both situations, job done. We don't need to go on. We don't need to appeal anything. But no, Hannah's written a whole article, so we better give her justice and go through it for her. So, let's go back to the beginning. She starts off, the family court should not ordinarily permit the instruction of experts who purport to be experts in alienation in cases involving decisions around child welfare. The Association of Clinical Psychologists, ACP UK, has advised the senior judge. Now, I wanted to quickly figure out who this organisation are, because they don't sound like the HCPC to me. And it is just the Association of Clinical Psychologists. And it's interesting, they are not a regulatory body, however the HCPC is. The organisation made submission to the High Court at the appeal of a mother who had had her children removed from her care against their wishes after being found to have alienated them from their father. The mother, clearly, has not let the children have a relationship with their dad. And it's interesting, the next comment says, in a court document seen by the Observer. So, the Observer's seen it, and it's so special we can't see it. So we can only take your word for it. Hey-ho. Anyway, carries on. Lawyers for the ACP UK claim that those who profess to be experts in alienation display a confirmatory bias and an unhelpful narrow lens, which is likely to render them unsuitable for conducting, in an open-minded way, a psychological assessment of the family. Hello? We are saying parental alienation is not gendered. We know that men can do it to mums and dads can do it to mums, and that it's, in fact, other family members can alienate children from parents, safe, loving parents. It's not gendered. So we're the ones with the open minds. We're the ones saying you need to look at each case individually to try and figure out what's happening. We're not the ones who've got the narrow view. Anyway, Barbara Mills, KC, wrote that much like an allegation of domestic abuse, the decision about whether or not a parent has alienated a child is a question of fact for the court to resolve, and not a diagnosis that can or should be offered by the psychologist. Well, as far as I'm aware, court experts or expert witnesses go in and they give the facts as they see it. They will do an assessment and they record the facts as they find it. It's for the judge to make the decisions whether they agree with the facts that have been presented or not. She said that the ACP UK wishes to emphasise that parental alienation is not a syndrome capable of being diagnosed, but a process of manipulation of children perpetrated by one parent against the other through what are termed as alienating behaviours. It is fundamentally a question of fact. Now, I agree with that one. She goes on to a hearing before Sir Andrew McFarlane. Mills also warned against using psychologists who are neither practitioners regulated by the HCPC nor academics who are chartered members of the British Psychological Society. McFarlane, considering the appeal of the mother, who claims that a jointly instructed expert who advised the judge in Peterborough that she had alienated her children, was not properly qualified. Now, what's happening here is that the mum is appealing after the judge, Lindsay Davies, accepted Melanie Gill's conclusions of alienation. This case raises important questions about policy and practice regarding how family court deals with the instruction of psychological experts and their regulatory status. We need to know that when our experts go into court, they know what they're talking about. However, what is the good of having a regulatory standard if there's no training to spot those alienating behaviours? Now, we're all agreed that parental alienation is child abuse. When someone is using those perpetrator behaviours that are cited in the statutory guidance to manipulate a child to reject a safe, loving parent, that is quite clearly coercive control, which is now stated as domestic abuse. It is also child abuse, which I've stated in my last video. We can't ignore it. Action needs to be taken. At the moment, I don't think anything's fit for practice. If you're talking about regulatory standards, we have to look at the experience of the individual experts who come into our courts, and we have to look at their track record. Just carte blanche saying, they're a parental alienation expert. They don't know what they're talking about. That is so, it's childish. It's really childish. Yeah, I don't like him because, I don't like her. I used to see it in the classroom. It's just silly. Anyway. Representing the mother at the appeal, Joy Berriton, KC, told the court the issue is whether Miss Davis got it right. Up and down the land, judges make decisions about children's lives. Children are removed from families by the state, which is draconian. She alleges that the impact of Gill's report was huge, leading to life-changing conditions for the children who now live with their father. I like what Sir Andrew McFarlane says. He says that the findings were based not only on Gill's report, but also her own, Judge Davies, appraisal of the totality of the evidence, including the mother's own evidence. Gill insists she was properly qualified and says she is the victim of a witch hunt. Now, I'm in a space and I am seeing lots of really well qualified experts who have been going into courts for years and years and years, being able to give their observations and not be questioned. And suddenly, because they've had the term parental alienation associated with them, because they've had experience of seeing how these alienating behaviours or perpetrator behaviours twists the way that children think about another parent. Just because they've had that attached to them, they're now considered to be unreputable, unfit. It's appalling. It really is a witch hunt. The ACP UK said Gill was neither regulated nor chartered. Now, we need to look at experience here. If you just go into her LinkedIn profile, you can see the experience she had there. And this was all acceptable to the court before the case. The only reason we're there is because Mum didn't like the outcome. Just this whole article it just reads like a witch hunt. It's awful. It says, Mills said, and it's a shame because I looked at her profile on LinkedIn and she's clearly a very capable KC. Mills said, this is not a case of an expert who discharged their role poorly or has gone beyond their remit. No. But a stark and troubling example of an individual who holds herself out as an expert, but has neither the qualifications nor the relevant skills to so hold. Now, she's got a master's degree from Brunel University, which is where Adrian Barnett goes. She's qualified. She's got experience. She's done loads of experience in forensic psychology. It's just... Anyway. And I've just said, remember, this court witness was accepted by both sides at the start of the case. But Mum's now complaining because it didn't go her way. The question I want to ask you is, who's paying for this appeal? Going to court cripples anyone. You're left financially with no money at the end of it. So you don't go into it lightly. If you go on down, it says, most concerning aspect of Gill's assessment, said Mills, was her treatment as the voice of the child and the reports that the children made to her. At the outset of her report, Miss Gill explains that she would not ask directly for the wishes and feelings from the children because in these cases such information is not necessarily reliable, noted Mills. Well, clearly Miss Mills does not understand how parental alienation works. The child just spills out the mantra that the alienating parent has told them to say. And one, they believe it's true, so they will say it, but two, heaven help them if they didn't say it. They've got to go home to that parent afterwards. And if they've said something different, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. So a child pleases their parent. They say what the parent wants them to hear because it's in their interest. It's part of their survival mechanism. So that's why it needs a psychologist to get underneath this and to figure out what is happening. The ACP UK claims it is never appropriate to exclude a child's wishes and feelings, said Mills, adding that Gill took this much further by dismissing the allegations of abuse of one child made about their father as not credible. Well, it's interesting that the judge agreed with it. And where's the evidence? Allegations by themselves are not evidence and should never be evidence. There must be more to it. And it doesn't take much for a trained psychologist to dig to find out exactly what has happened. The barrister representing Gill quite rightly said, arguing that she was an expert and did not need to be regulated to advise the court in a way that she did, he pointed out that the ACPC UK was not a regulator. Andrew Bagchi KC told the hearing that there was a whiff of a witch hunt and that Gill had previously been targeted by litigants who had lost and wanted to complain. But Gill's career was now on the line, he told the court. Goes on to say that he had described how Gill had been an expert witness in the Children Act cases for more than 15 years and had been instructed to provide expert reports in somewhat around 70 to 100 cases. She has a BSc degree in psychology from Brunel University and a postgraduate diploma in child forensic and psychology and law from Leeds University. Bagchi said that Gill's qualifications were subject of the most searching and probing investigation at the previous hearing before Davies and the judge had concluded that Gill was an expert. He goes on to say that this had been an ad hominem attack made on a client by an applicant, her advisors and supporters. And it really has been ad hominem because there are hashtags Melanie Gill going across Twitter. It's awful. I feel so sorry for Melanie. Gill's professional standing risks being serious collateral damage to the central point that the mother cannot see past her own lack of insight. And Bagchi added that Davies had previously found that the mother's evidence was not reliable or credible. Did you hear that? Not reliable or credible. He pointed out that Parliament could, in theory, have legislated so as to prohibit the instruction of non-regulated psychologists, adding, it has not. So it's leaving it to the judge to figure out whether the expert is the right person for the job or not. The article finishes off by saying, Sir Andrew McFarlane has asked the ACP UK to provide further evidence to substantiate some of the claims, and Gill will have the chance to respond. Too right, she should have the chance to respond. What I find really, really disturbing is the fact that we have all these women's groups. Just a whiff of the term parental alienation, and they're lifting their hands up and saying, she's not qualified, she's not regulated, we can't have her or him. And yet, do we do the same in domestic abuse cases? Do we have domestic abuse expert witnesses? And we don't kick them out of court just because they're domestic abuse experts. It's so wrong. Or we could argue, where's the regulation for them? There are so many things that it's just not acceptable. So where do we go from here? Sir Andrew McFarlane, we need you to step up, to give us some guidance. We need to know that our children will be protected, that the best interests of the child will always come first. And if we go back to that statement from the Anna Freud Centre that says that the child has the right to a full and loving relationship with both parents. Please, this is what we need. I am fed up with hearing parents who are suicidal because they couldn't have a relationship with their children. I am fed up with hearing children who have tried to commit suicide or have committed suicide because they can't cope, they don't know who they are. Their identity has been so warped by the experiences they've been through. And then the tragic, tragic stories of adult children who finally get to meet their parent that they were alienated from decades after the abuse happened, and suddenly they realise what their mother had done, how they had warped their mind. And I'm struck by the way that these adults talk about how it affected their childhood and their ability to trust the people around them. It is child psychological abuse. It is child abuse. Parental alienation is child abuse. And it has got to stop. If you've got this far, thank you. We will keep making little videos like this, and we will keep fighting for you. We will keep saying what needs to be said, because the truth will prevail. Thank you. Please subscribe. Please share. Please do all the things that people say. And I'm going to go back and crawl under my bed now because I've got COVID. Okay.